Hey, I want to thank y'all for joining me for this episode of the Hip Hop Humboldt podcast. For this one, I've got a legend. I'm talking a Humboldt County legend.
Yo, it's Kyz J, aka Chavo, aka Chavinsky. You know what I mean? I went by a couple different names during my music stint. Kyz J. So the name Kyz J originally comes from when we got started. Everybody back then, you had to have a rap name. Nowadays, everybody kind of maybe go by their real name is their rap name. So we're coming up with names, and a lot of us already had nicknames in the crew. So we just kind of went by the nicknames. But I was always known as Mexican Joe. You know what I mean? I used to go by Joe when I was younger, and so we had a couple guys named Joe in the crew, and I was always Mexican Joe. So we're coming up with our names, and they're like, "Nah, dude, you like Kaiser Soze, but Kaiser Jose." So if you've ever seen Usual Suspects, Kaiser Soze is the dude that nobody really knows who he is. He kind of got a lot of connects. People just kind of worried about him, kind of in the background, right? So that you Kaiser Jose. We just call you Kyz J. So that's how I got the name Kyz J. And then it graduated to Chavez. And if you've ever watched Young Guns, Chavez is the one Mexican dude rolling with all the white dudes, right? He got the crew of white cowboys, and he's the Indian / Mexican. So they're like, yeah, you like the one Mexican dude in our group of white boys, you're Chavez. So and then they moved on to Chavo, and that was just the nickname Chavos.
Okay, that's what's up. I know how things change over time as you guys are doing more shows and the years pass and like just things change, and it's dope to have that kind of representation of that persona and like what you were doing at the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and as you'll see with me, as in a lot of the other podcasts that I heard, a lot of us older humble cats were all intertwined in some way, shape, or form, whether it was from family members. Some of us were in groups, and then we did off groups with other hip hop artists, and then there's really I was listening to OEB, and I was listening to Case and Swizz and Highway, and man, all of us guys are like, we're all intertwined. We all did music together. We all kind of came up together, even just growing up before the music thing. Humboldt's a small place. And me personally, I think I went to 3 high schools. I went to Arcata High, I went to Eureka High, and I went to Fortuna High. So, I kind of know everybody from everywhere. Plus, I probably went to, we moved around a lot. We was homeless when we were younger. So I went to a lot of elementary schools all over the county. So, I know a lot of people from all over the place when it comes to the county.
That's what's up. Yeah. You definitely got respect. LCA definitely held a lot of respect. I know that much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And kind of where Case, where he started off was, he used to ride around, and I met Case through another homie, Kenny Drake, rest in peace, Kenny Drake. He was one of Case's original tag crews. This is where they came up with the name Lower Class Alcoholics. And I knew Kenny from just wandering the streets, man. I kind of was the dude who could always, before we was 21, I knew where to, to get 40s. I knew where to get, the bags of weed. And, I was just kind of that dude. And I met Case, and he would roll around in this green Peugeot with a karaoke machine in the back. And they would be playing beats on the karaoke machine, and J-Bo would just be back there freestyling, and I was like, man, these white dudes kind of crazy rolling around with it, with the slap and the karaoke machine. And then I used to live out in Cutton, and I would sit out there, and some guys that I grew up with, Shiloh Chase, rest in peace, Shiloh, Little Man, Bobby Scott, and another homie, who just touched down, Kevin Haberman. So we would all hang out in the woods, drink 40s, and these guys would be freestyling, just freestyling, no beats, nothing, just freestyling off the top of the head. And eventually I kind of, a little bit of drunk courage got in there, started freestyling. And then me and Kevin, we started kind of putting songs together. Now, these guys, especially so Bobby Scott had an older sister who had a baby with OEB. So way back in the day, right? Like they were young. They started having kids kind of young. And we always knew about OEB was always out there battling. And, you know, we used to go to these, even before that, I used to go to these clubs when I wasn't really supposed to be in there. They had a club called Aftershock. There was Tsunami, which was in Arcata, which is where Humbrew's is now. That was like a underground shit that like I think you had to be 17 or 16 to get in there. And I was in there sneaking in with the older cats, you know, we would be in there breakdancing sometimes. And so yeah, when I started out with, you know, freestyling with the guys out in Cutting, I had an older homie by the name of Jake McCants. Now, Jake McCants was a dude who he was pretty young. He already had his own apartment. You know, he had a lot of like cool ass toys. He had like a nice truck that he was fixing up and cars that he was fixing up. He had a half pipe in his backyard, you know, like wow. he was always dabbling in all sorts of cool shit. You know, he always had like, he was that dude, like when you went to his house, he had all these cool fucking masks on the wall. His shit was all styled out. You know what I mean? Like for a young dude, he had it going on, and he had a studio in his house. And he's the first dude I saw with like a full size 32 track board in his house. It's him and some of his homies used to fuck around and, you know, making beats and just freestyling and whatever. So I knew that he had this thing going on. So me and the homie Kevin, we went over there and we were just recording some shit. Well, it turns out that Oli is one of the dudes in his crew. So Oli starts kind of hearing some of the shit, you know, and I become familiar with Oli. We become friends.
Shout out to Oli.
Yeah, Diamondback, man. That's a huge name for Humboldt County. And for some of you younger cats, you know, they don't have the opportunities maybe that Oli used to give some guys that came from nowhere. As long as you was working, he was giving, you know, opportunities. But little did we know Oli had been promoting for Kid Rock for like a long time, you know, and I didn't know this about Oli until years later when I finally had linked up with Kyz. And basically, we all ended up working at the same restaurant, and we had already known each other. We all worked at this restaurant called Sweet River Bar and Grill, and I don't know if you've been around that long. It used to be in the mall, and so we was all working there. And eventually, we ended up living in the same apartment complex. We'd go over to Kyz's house and freestyle, and then an apartment came open next to Kyz, and so me and my roommate moved in next to Kyz. Well, now we got Kyz and Joby 1, who was making our first original beats in one apartment. We got me and my roommate in another. And down the road, in the last apartment, we had one of our other homies. So we basically had like this apartment complex. It was basically like a frat house, basically. You know, we had parties and we freestyle. And so I remember me and Kyz got along well because Kyz is the type of guy who would go to the record store whenever the new release day was. I think it was Thursdays or Fridays back then. And Kyz would just go buy CDs that you'd never heard of before. Kyz was the type of guy who'd go in there and drop like $100 and bring back all these CDs, and you had never heard of any of these people before, right? Like I remember he pulled out a Nelly CD before Nelly even hit the radio, right? Because we would always get shit late in Humboldt, right? He was already maybe popping in you know, SoCal or whatever, but we would always get shit like a month late. So Kyz would bust out this Nelly shit, and he's playing this, and he's like, Jose, this is gonna be all over the place. And that was when that shit, he played that, and I remember like a month later, I was like, Kyz, this is that CD that you bought. And then it just went bonkers. Nelly was huge, right? Like, and Kyz would do this all the time, and I was kind of the same way. I mean, even to this day, I still have I have a huge CD collection. You know what I'm saying? I have a CD players. I have a tape player still. You know what I mean? I have a tape collection. Kyz, I can guarantee you, he's probably got a huge tape and CD collection, right? We were just those guys, and we would, you know, play music back and forth with each other, and we start freestyling, and then we started doing some recordings. We had OEB over, and then those tapes somehow ended up getting to Oli. And Oli was like just starting to put Summerfest together. Summerfest was a big deal. It was like our first festival. And the way Summerfest started was Oli used to have these parties in the summertime at either, I think it was his aunt's cabin or his homie's cabin, where he would invite all these people out, and there'd be a big party. And he would push his promotions for Kid Rock at these parties. And that was how he was, you know, they would get a keg and they would have this raging ass party. And I remember one summer we tried to get there and we couldn't find it because it was kind of one of those things you had to know. You know what I mean? You knew when it was on the same day every year. And if you knew, you knew. And if you didn't, you heard later on like, oh shit, I can't believe I missed that party. So after these parties got too big to hold at the cabin, he decided to blow it up into this festival. Mm-hmm. And the festival, the first year, there's all these, just a ton of bands. And I believe, I think the Potluck played either the first or the second, but I know Swizz was there with his band. And then I remember the second year, we had just started kind of putting music together. And Oli came to us because we, you know, I knew Oli from the mutual friend, and we all, it's a small world. So we knew each other, and he was like, man, you guys should put something together. And if you can put something together, we're going to put you on the next Summerfest. And we were stoked. That was it. You know, then we came up with the name, and we got our little recording together that Kyz was talking about, our first one. And I remember I had kind of just come into the group, and it was J Slim, Mental Case, and J-Bo, and then I kind of came into it. And I just did the introduction, I believe, a little bit of recording on there because I hadn't really put together any songs yet. So we get the tape out, and then we decided we were going to go to Summerfest. Obviously, we weren't on the show, but what we did was we bought like 1,000 flyers for our first show that we held at the Vista, which is, I believe, still there, the Vista down on the bay.
Yeah.
So we put flyers on like every car. We literally just littered the whole place with flyers. The wind came, you could just see our flyers blowing everywhere. So after Summerfest, we had our show, and I believe the first show that we threw was 2002, and the Vista. And I remember me and Kyz going there and talking to the guy. They had a lot of punk rock shows there. And Bob was like, yeah, I guess we could try it out, you know. And I was like, well, here's what we're gonna do. We'll charge $3 at the door. You take $1, we'll take $2. And we packed the house. I mean, the parking lot was full. It was just like, it was crazy. It was so packed. Just, you're like sardines in there. Everybody's sweating because it's so small. And the dude was so stoked that, and I think Kyz told this story too. The dude was so stoked. He was like, man, I made so much money off the bar. You guys can keep it. You guys can keep every bit of it. I think we made we made at least $600. And I believe, you know, anytime me and Kyz threw a show together and we brought people on, we would always try to pay everybody. Even if we weren't getting paid and we were getting drink tickets, so everybody got drink tickets. It was everybody. It was even across the board. The only thing that we did was, you know, if we made $300 and there was 3 groups, we would take 150 and split the rest between everybody else. And then we would put that money back into doing more shows, whether it was flyers, promotions, or whatever. But we always try to make sure everybody got a little bit of money. So
that's what's
you know, I'm sure a lot of the stories Kyz told led up to the point where we start getting a little more popular. There's 4 of us in the group. We put out a couple little CDs, and we're getting them, you know, and we're basically printing these we're printing them at our house. This is when CD burners weren't really a thing. They had just come out, and you just have a single component CD player that hooked into your stereo. But them shits were like $1,500. So Kyz got one, and then I ended up getting one on the street somehow, and we were just having burn sessions where we're just burning CDs left and right. We spent a whole day. We there with fans trying to keep these things cool so they don't. And then we go to Kinko's and just blast out a ton of cover. Then we taking them and we selling them like $5 a piece, handing them out. So we started gaining a little bit of popularity. We're doing shows here and there, and this was around the time where the Red Fox came out. Mm-hmm. And the Red Fox came about, and the first owner before Swizz was this dude named Rick. Now Rick was a cat that I knew from working. I worked for a dude named Smokin' Moses, who still makes local barbecue sauce there in Humboldt County, who's a caterer. And he would do all the local festivals, Oyster Fest. He would do weddings. He was the uncle of a girl I was dating at the time. So I started working with him catering, which was always cool because the dude would buy drinks. These festivals are super fun, and you're getting paid to be there. You get in for free, you get paid to be there. Well, I met Rick, and Rick was like, oh yeah, you do music? Check us out. I'm about to open this bar in Humboldt, in Eureka. And I was like, what? You opening a bar? How do we get in there? He was like, look, all I need to know is that you're going to be able to bring a crowd, and you can have the shows here all you want. We'll split the door, or if it's good, I'll take the bar. So that ended up happening. Red Fox opens, and now we kind of got the in Eureka. You know, we have all these other groups. Potluck is starting to really pop, you know what I mean? And those guys kind of set the bar, especially for us. We kept seeing stuff that they were doing, and we were like, man, we gotta do that too. Because look at the show, look at the amount of people they're bringing to these shows. They had a level of professionalism that kind of set the bar for us to try to reach, even though, and you know, at the time, we thought they must have had some sort of financial backing or whatever, because here we are doing these recordings with Radio Shack mixers, and we're using these, you know, ADAT machines, all the way back to analog. Before there was no computers. None of us knew how to use computers. There's no social media. So we kind of watched what they did, and then we were kind of do it in our own way. But now we had, you know, we couldn't get into the Arcata scene very easily. You know, back then it was very Fortuna, Arcata, Eureka. If you was out of Arcata, you didn't do a lot of shows in Eureka, and vice versa. So we kind of had this scene popping at the Red Fox. I got in really good there with the dude there, and then one time we had a show booked, and there was another big band coming in, and the owner called me, and he's like, hey, I know you guys got this show book. I know you've already done promoting, but here's the deal. I got this really big band coming, and they want your date, and I have to give it to them. But here's what I'm going to do. There's another guy opening a club right across the street from Porter Street Barbecue, right? I forgot what that club was called, but it was open just for a brief minute, but it was nice. It was a big club, nice sound system. And he goes, this guy's going to be open before then, and I'll pay you for all the promotions that you've done already, and I'll hook you up with this new club owner. This new club owner wants to do hip hop shows. So I go over and I talk to the new club owner, and he's down with it, right? And he's like, and if you know other people, let me know. So I'm like, oh, now we got multiple clubs, right? We got the in. We can do shows wherever we want.
Yeah, so, and I think that was Nocturnum, unless I'm wrong.
Yes, Nocturnum. That was the name of the club. And a lot of these guys were, you know, they were behind the scenes, you know, growers or whatever. And this is before, you know, before legalization, people looking for places to put their money, and that dude was super cool. He let us have the show there. You know, it wasn't huge, but we brought a couple hundred people in, and at this time, you know, we're kind of starting to get serious. Now we're like, all right, we have to start building this as a brand. We can't just be these guys that are, you know, first couple shows and stuff we're doing, we're getting, you know, we're partying, we're drinking super hard, and you know, we're kind of fumbling a little bit here and there on stage, and then as stuff gets a little more serious, we decided that we have an opportunity to be able to do what we love, get paid for it, but we have to take it serious. And so we start practicing. Really, I mean, we're practicing 3 times a week our stage show, sometimes 4 and 5 days a week. We're practicing breath control. We're practicing catching each other's ad libs. Like, you know, we're doing all these things to try to be as professional as possible. And, you know, during that time, Oli started really bringing bigger artists in. So now we're getting the opportunity for opening act to be us. You know what I mean? Around the same time, we get the hip hop station. And now there's starting to be all these opportunities.
The
party. Yeah. So we get an opportunity to play. The party did like a little video thing, and I don't remember if you remember like Dance Party USA or anything like that, where they would just play music and the kids would be out there dancing, and they would, you know, record them. It's kind of like kind of like Dance Party USA. MTV had a version of it. Well, they were going to try to do something, so they had us come on, and I remember it was kind of one of the first opportunities that we blew was we got up there, and it was at Club West. But there was no drinking because it was all ages, you know, and no one told us we weren't supposed to get up there and be like, you know, fuck this, fuck that. So we get up and we're just, you know, we're just going for it. You know, our songs weren't child friendly. I mean, we did not edit them like we thought. We didn't know we were supposed to do, but apparently we were supposed to. And they were like, yeah, no, we're not airing this. Yeah, no, you guys, nah, this is too much. You guys, there's all these little kids out here and y'all up here cursing and talking about drinking. And I'm like, bro, we're the lower class alcoholics. What were you expecting? You know what I mean? We're not a church choir. Like, so that was one of like the first opportunities that we kind of blew. But as we start to get serious, everybody kind of had their idea of what we should be doing. Slim wanted to make mixtapes. Case wanted to, make beats and do a serious album. And now we're adding some other dudes. We're reaching out to other dudes that we're finding in Eureka and having them open up for us. Now we're kind of a conglomerate. We got this little dude, Kyle, who's fresh out of high school, who's doing battle raps and recording. We got the dudes from McKinleyville who are coming in too. We got Slim, who knows them. And so now we kind of got a little conglomerate going, and slowly but surely, I think Slim fades out. He decides that he wants to do mixtapes because that's kind of what's going on in New York right now. He was very into East Coast hip hop, and Slim kind of fades out. So then we're at a standstill, and we're like, all right, what do we do now? So Jimbo and Casey, they build a studio. And, before this, we're still in a closet with some, foam pad here and there, just putting together whatever we can. So they build a studio, and now it's just me and Jimbo and Casey and Kyle and all of our other conglomerate groups. Everybody kind of slid off, started doing their own thing, whether it was music, life. So now we start getting a recording together. We start putting songs together. We finally got a decent amount of songs recorded, and I remember we went and we were all still just working regular jobs. We didn't really have any money, any resources. We're doing some shows and we're collecting a little bit of money here and there at the shows, but we're using those again for more promotion for other shows. So we decide that we're going to make this album and try to make it serious. And we go to Oli, and we're like, Oli, we need some funding. We need some backing. Here's what we have so far. What do you think? I remember he took about a week, and we're like, man, why is this guy not getting back to us? So when he finally hits us back, he's like, look, man, I like the album, but there's some things that I want to change. And we're like, whoa, change? What do you mean? He was like, well, I want to use some of the older songs and just re-record them. And we're like, no. As an artist, you're trying to move, you're trying to get better, move forward. We're like, nah, man, even those songs, with a better recording, we don't want to use those songs. We want to use all new songs. And then Oli was just like, well, if I can't have a say in how I want to produce the album and push it, then I think that it'd be better off for you guys just to do it on your own. And we were a little crushed, but we're like, all right, well, that's fine with us, So it took a little while. We went around searching for funding, and we couldn't. We just had no one to give us money. We wanted to get like about $1,000 together. So I think what we did is we buckled down, and we all just decided, like, all right, $300 each. That's all we need. That's all we need, because we want to get 1,000 albums pressed up, because we're selling enough CDs doing the Kinko's thing that we figure if we get 1,000 albums and we sell 200 of them, we've easily made our money back. And now we got 800 more to start profiting. So we record the album. We get the album cover how we want it. We find this dude that Oli helped us find to like vectorize the album and make it, clean as shit. And I don't know if Case, I brought some archives here.
Oh,
I don't know if Case showed you, but this was the album cover.
Oh yeah, I think he did. Yeah. That's what's up right there.
Yeah, so we got that done, and then we got together the money. We ended up getting it mixed and mastered a little bit from a guy named Kenny Freestyle, who's also another local guy who kind of helped us out, and so we ended up getting the album pressed up. And I remember we're getting ready for the CD release party, and we're practicing 5 days a week. And it's just me, Jimbo, and Casey now. And we got this in at the Red Fox, and we got this in at Nocturnum. So we decided to have the CD release party at the Red Fox. So we push it. We're pushing it as much as possible, and we packed the house. It was great. We packed the house. And people that we've known forever, the thing about LCA is that it wasn't just the three of us. And I might not remember everybody that was involved, but we had so many different groups of people involved after, especially after this CD release party. We had friends coming up to us that were like, holy shit, man, this shit is like, y'all are like professional now. Like, you haven't done it. And, you know, we took a little break while we are trying to make this album. And then all of a sudden we come out and we want everything to be on point professional. So we get up, we do the show, and people are just like, wow, and this is different. It's not like you guys just freestyling in the apartment drunk like you used to be. You know, we took it very serious. We took it very, very serious. And so we're actually selling albums. We figure out a way. We get a barcode on the back. We figure out a way to get them into Sam Goody. We figure, you know, we get them down at the works. They're moving, and we decided the thing that we're going to do is if we could sell 200 and get our money back, and we have 800 more to sell, even if we sell 300 of those 800, we're going to be able to get more stuff. So we were always reinvesting in ourselves. And the other thing that we would do is we would go to the high school and be like, it's Friday. We're going to go to the high school and we're going to hand out 50 CDs for free. Just hand them out to any kid that listens. Hey, you listen to hip hop? Check this out. It's a local group. Check it out. And I mean, I would say 10 to 15 years later, I would run into people and say, hey, you were in that LCA group, right? You guys handed me this CD when I was coming out the high school. And I still bump that shit. Like years later, that's a great feeling when people, you know, they're like, yeah, you handed me the CD for free. No one gives out CDs for free, you know? So we were constantly marketing, pushing. Anywhere we get, if we did show out of town, we would go find, if we would get there early enough, we'd go find the local high school and we'd go hand out our CDs for free. As long as we had enough to get our money back and make a little bit extra, we would always push the rest of them for free. Because for us, it wasn't really about, you know, we weren't there to make money. We were there because we loved what we were doing. And when we saw an opportunity to, you know, be able to have it pay for itself, it wasn't even really, we never really thought like, we're going to do this and we're going to be able to pay our bills. We just thought, you know what, if we can make this thing pay for itself and we don't have to spend our own money and we get to do what we love, well, that's success. You know what I mean? Like we never had dreams of becoming rap stars or any of that business. It was just like, man, we're having a great time. We're all young. We're getting to do what we love. Why not? You know, so we ended up taking it to the professional level afterwards. I ended up having a lot to do with most of the booking of the shows, because it turns out that through these connections, through Red Fox, through Nocturnum, through Oli, and then we start opening up for bigger acts. Oli's bringing, I mean, we opened up for everybody you can think of. We opened up for E40, we opened up for D12, we opened up for Warren G. We did a small tour with Sean Price and Ill Bill. I mean, rest in peace, Sean Price. I mean, that's huge. Crazy. Yeah. Like we did a show with Sean Price and Ill Bill at a pool hall in Willow Creek, bro. Like who does that? You know what I mean?
That's
like
crazy. Sean Paul the Barbarian was in Willow Creek.
Sean Price. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Sean Price. Yeah, the Barbarian. Yeah.
In Willow Creek, bro. Like in a pool hall in the corner, like no stage even. You know what I mean? Just busting rhymes with these dudes who are like legendary. Like that was huge. You know what I mean?
That's big, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, so it came around, then Summerfest came around, and Summerfest came around again, and we do Summerfest, and I remember Summerfest that year. Summerfest was a combination of all sorts of music, right? There was heavy metal, there was jazz, funk, there's DJs, they had bikini contests. I think Spice One was there that year. Into Deep was there that year. I hosted the bikini contest with one of the dudes from Into Deep. You know what I mean? That shit was off the hook. And then there was another. We used to do these shows called Metal versus Hip Hop with a group of dudes from McKinleyville who we knew that were a metal band. So they would do a set, and then we would do a set, and then they would get up, and we would do our tribute to the Beastie Boys, where we do No Sleep Till Humble, or You Gotta Fight for Your Right, while they played the heavy metal background. And that shit just always killed it. You know what I mean? We loved doing that shit. But after Summerfest, you know, we're starting to finally, like, pick up speed. We're doing shows. We do shows with who you just had on the other day. We did a show with Total Devastation and Afro Man out at the Peg House between Humboldt and Mendocino, where you could just see clouds of smoke just for miles, just like it was like a forest fire. You know what I'm saying? Like,
real, I bet.
And so we start. You know, we had there was at that time a lot of other groups finally started seeing too that they could do this, right? You start getting these other groups like the Thick Fam started coming on, and those guys were, and all these groups, these guys, they all worked to get where they were at. It wasn't like you could just put your music on the internet and then someone would see it and then boom, the next day you blew up. It wasn't like you did a dance to a video and then bam, all of a sudden, you know, you got 1 million views, and it wasn't like that. Like, you know, we all came up putting up flyers for these shows for Oli, and that's how we got on too. Was we would blast flyers, same as, you know, Highway would blast flyers. Thick Fam, those guys would blast flyers to get on these shows with Diamondback. They worked security, and then they started kind of Big Daddy and the Thick Fams kind of had their own little set of clubs that they would do shows at, and then Lil Sick came along, who was also somebody that I knew for a very long time. Rest in peace, Lil Sick. And we kind of started having a Eureka scene. And then we started getting big enough to where now we're doing the same shows as Potluck. We're opening up for E40, and you know, we intermingle with the Dirty Rats, who came out of nowhere. Like, we didn't even know there was people in Fortuna rapping, and then we had the show out of CR, and there was the Dirty Rats, and we were like, who the fuck are these crazy guys? These guys are crazy. I remember Stir Fry Willie came up with I think he had pants like Flea in the music video where he's got all the stuffed animals on his pants.
Yeah,
I think Stir Fry Willie had a set of pants like that, and we were like, these guys are crazy, right? Like, I mean, I got stickers from Sonny Wong here. Like, if he sees this, he's gonna be like, he still have this? Like, he was handing out these stickers before. I mean, Sonny Wong, an amazing, not just hip hop artist, but an amazing artist all the way around, right? Like,
yep.
So now we got all these groups. We're starting to really push, and we're doing a lot of shows. We got to a point where we're doing shows almost every weekend of the summer, all summer long, sometimes in the middle of the week. We're finally starting to get paid. We turn our money back around, and now we've got merch. We've got sweatshirts. We've got T-shirts. We started coming up with our own logos. This was one of the logos that we came up with. Was Rep Hum. It was like the Run DMC, right? So I got my Rep Hum shirt on right now. We started making these shirts, right? Like, we're selling shirts. We're selling CDs. We got other groups that we're bringing on to our shows, and we always were about trying to get other groups that were working. You know, it was like, as when you were there back in the day, you get a lot of people who come up to you at the shows and be like, hey bro, I'm tight, put me on. We're like, nah bro, it doesn't work that way. What are you doing? Nothing, I'm just tight, bro. Like, you guys just put me on. I'll freestyle for you right now. Look, you'll see how tight I am. And it was like, nah dude, you could be the tightest rapper in the world, but if you're not contributing to the work that we're all putting in, then fuck off. You know what I'm saying? We got no time for that. Like, I don't care what you think of these guys that opened up for us or doing shows with us. These guys, in some way, shape, or form, were helping to push the movement. We had so many little groups that, you know, we try to pay every time. And there's always, you know, one or two instances where somebody doesn't like where they're at in the set list because they think they're better than, you know, the group that's going on after them. And you know, we were never really, it was like, you know, we're the ones putting these shows together, so we're going to go on last, and you guys are getting the chance to perform for our crowd so you can wow them, and now they become your crowd as well. So we were always into pushing that. We did shows with so many other local groups and people now that are still involved in pushing Humboldt County art, whether it's one form or another. Even let's say Chris Durant, who now has the comedy club that used to be the Red Fox, that was another club before that. He was in a rap group.
Yep. Republican Duck Hunters, I believe.
Republican Duck Hunters, right? So we will put those guys on shows, and some of these other guys are like, dude, these guys are like comedians. Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, but their shit is good. Like, they practice. They're good. He also used to have a podcast, and he had the Savage Henry. And then before he had Savage Henry, he had the Short Bus magazine, right? So there's all these avenues that these guys are helping us, right? We're all pushing each other's stuff. It doesn't matter what you think about someone's rap. I think that's become a thing nowadays where it's like, people don't realize it's not about everybody that I work with. I didn't necessarily bump their shit all day long, but I respected their hustle, and that was why I worked with them. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't a huge Potluck fan. I wasn't really into weed rap like that much. Here and there, yeah, they had some definitely good songs, but those guys had a hustle that you couldn't pass that up. Their hustle was great, right? So there's all these other groups that I didn't really mess with hyphy music that much either, but there's some groups in Humboldt now that are doing hyphy and they're hustling. So it's like, I'm not going to hate on these dudes just because I might not bump their shit every day. If they got a good hustle and they're ready to work and they're pushing their style of hip hop, then good for them. We all have that's the thing, is we all had kind of a different style. The Rats were a little bit different than us, so we were a little bit different than Potluck. And then there was the Thick Fam was a little bit different than us, and the MB Riders. And then there was there was Hater Relate, who was kind of like a group that was down with Potluck that they kind of helped out. There was all these little groups, but everybody was just a little bit different. They had their own form of the art, and they were all pushing. Everybody was like hustling, you know what I mean? And when I say hustling, some of these younger kids, if you see this, like, you cannot understand hustle without the internet. You know what I mean? If you're 30 years old or younger, you just don't understand what the hustle was like before the internet. I mean, we were blasting flyers everywhere, and it got to the point where the city put up an ordinance because about putting up flyers, because every flyer was like a rainbow, bro. It was just colored with flyers everywhere, all the way across the city. And then, I started getting into the point where I got in good with some of the store owners that we could put them in the windows of the stores. And then I got a couple guys that I knew that owned restaurants that had marquees, and now we're putting shows on the marquees. And as time went along, we did our best to help, as many people as we can that were putting in the work. And it got to the point where Kyz is now, he's making all the beats, he's doing the recording, and I'm doing all the business end. I mean, I really came out of left field, out of nowhere. And now it's just starting, the internet is just kind of starting to come into play, right? So now you got MySpace. So now we're promoting on MySpace, right? And we're getting kind of serious, and we're looking for a DJ. And there's a lot of people that from out of the area really kind of helped push the movement as well. And one of those people was, to this day, and maybe you've met him, because he was at the show with Total Devastation. So on MySpace, I reached out. We were looking for a DJ, because now we want to take our show a little bit further. And with a DJ, we could stop the show when we want to. We could interact with the crowd. There's just so many more things that you can do with a DJ. And I encourage all hip hop artists, like, coming up, to have your music on a CD and hand it to the sound man and be able to just go all the way through it. That's great. That's great. But if you can get a DJ who you practice with, there's no better performance than a hip hop artist with a band to back him, or a DJ. It's just, I mean, it's so organic, and it could be great. So we're searching for this DJ. We put out an ad on MySpace. I got a message from this guy from Chico. His name is Hap Hathaway, and he has this group called the Resonators. So, and you'll see that even now, some of the influence that we had back then is still bleeding into stuff now and intertwining. So Hap Hathaway reaches out to me, and he's like, "Look, bro, I could come DJ for you. I DJ and I have this rap group. I don't think, because I'm so far, that I could be your full-time DJ. But I see that you have access to these clubs in Humboldt, and I'm trying to get my crew into Humboldt, but I have access to these clubs in Chico and in Fresno, where I used to live. So why don't we do a thing where we trade shows? We'll come to Humboldt, open up for you. You come to Chico, you open up for us." And now we're like, all right, now we're going to start taking it on the road, right? Now, all right, this is working out great. So they come, and we finally narrowed down a DJ. We got Super Sam, Sam Clinton. So we got a DJ. Now our performance is is, you know, really our thing for us was we used to say 5 or 500. And the deal with 5 or 500, and this carries on to even to highway and later on, is that you do a show like there's a million people there, whether it's 5 or 500. You put on the best show. And what we would see, a lot of artists come from the Bay Area, bigger artists would come in and they would just slap in their CD and kind of lip sync, you know, kind of half-ass it. And if we opened up, our deal was this: if we're opening up for you, you better have a good show, because if not, you are going to look like shit after you go on after us. You're not going to want to go on after us.
Yeah.
That was our thing. We got to perfect our stage performance, because if we get our stage performance down, we are going to stand out. And it worked. Every time we did shows where, you know, it wasn't every time, but a lot of times they would come on and they would just lip sync and then people would leave. We're talking like big time artists that come from the Bay Area or Southern California. We would be up there just going it and getting the crowd pumped up, and then they would come on and just lip sync over their shit, and the whole crowd, the crowd would leave. Red Fox would empty, and they would get pissed. They'd be like, "What the fuck is this shit? I come down here for what, 2 people? There was 500 people in it," and then they would be mad. "Oh, you put me on too late." Nah. And the club owners would be like, "Nah, you lip synced. Like these guys came on and killed it, and then you came on and lip synced."
Yeah.
Like people don't want to see that down here. They want to see a show. You know what I mean? They paid $12 or whatever to get in here. They want to see a show. So I'm getting off track, but yeah, we basically, all we did was practice, man. We practice and practice and practice. And now we're taking the show on the road. Oli set us up with a little tour after one of the Summer Fests. You know, Summerfest, we had Haystack on Summerfest. Oli brought some of the bigger artists that I would say, aside from Potluck, because they kind of had their own thing going where they were working with bigger artists. Aside from Potluck, Oli was really the person who made it happen for people to be able to get their music out by opening up for really big names. I mean, I can't say enough good things about Oli. Oli was also not just going to give you a spot because you said you were tight. You know what I mean? He was just not that guy where you could go up and convince him that you were tight by spitting a couple bars. You had to have a CD. You had to have some sort of, you know, you had to prove that you was actually there putting in work. And if you were, he gave you an opportunity. And if you took advantage of that opportunity and you got up and you did good on your show and you had practice, he wasn't going to let you get up there and you were going to, you know, fumble your words and be like, "Hey, stop, start the CD over, start the CD over." Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That shit just wasn't going to work. He wanted it to be professional. And for a lot of years, you know, people would talk shit about Oli because he said that he had met Kid Rock and he was promoted for him. People are like, "Man, this guy's full of shit." And he kept saying, "One of these times I'm gonna have Kid Rock come down here and I'm gonna have him do a show." And for years and years, people were like, this guy's full of shit. This guy's, you know. And he had at Summerfest, he had a deal where if you bought a Summerfest ticket in advance and you kept the ticket, he was gonna have a show. You hold on to that ticket where Kid Rock was going to come and you were going to get in that show for free or cheaper. I can't remember if it was free or for cheaper. And so a lot of people bought the tickets, right? Some people threw them away because a year later, Kid Rock wasn't in Humble, you know. And I remember when it happened. I remember when he was like, "Bro, Kid Rock's coming. He's gonna do a show here in Eureka." And motherfuckers were like, "You are full of shit. You don't know no Kid Rock, rah, 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 this and that." And then the flyers went out, bro. And then the flyers went out and people were pissed because they threw away their tickets. You know what I mean? They were like, "Man, this guy's full of shit. He just used this to sell tickets to Summerfest." And he let us open up the show. And
oh wow,
that was huge too. Like I still got my backstage pass.
Damn, hell yeah.
Yeah, Kid Rock. Yeah, and this was our logo for LCA, our first logo that Joby One drew.
Oh,
and
shit, I've seen that one. That's dope.
I've seen this backstage. I had this backstage pass, and I'm back there, and I was looking for a spot to roll one up. And I remember I ducked into this little trailer, and I didn't realize they had a trailer for Kid Rock in the back, kind of as his own trailer to hang out. And I went in there, and he was like, "Hey, what's up?" And I was like, "Oh shit, it's fucking Kid Rock." And he was like, "Hey, what's up, man? You want to get a picture or something?" No, bro. I'm just looking for a spot to roll one up. He's like, "Yeah, do your thing, man." You know, so I rolled one up and I bounced, you know, like But yeah, that was a big deal. Like people were tripping when he showed up. Like the new, they even got on the news. The news was trying to get in for free. Like the Channel 3 news was like, "Oh, Kid Rock shows up. He flies in on his private jet," and people were tripping balls that Kid Rock is in Eureka and he's going to do a show at Redwood Acres. And we got to open up.
They shouldn't have.
Nah, and they just thought he was using that shit to sell tickets to Summerfest. But yeah, so getting back to meeting up with Hap, was a big deal. We went on a little tour with Oli called the Bruja Tour, which at the time he had reached out to another group from kind of Central California called the Moonshine Bandits. And the Moonshine Bandits were two white dudes kind of come out of a farm town. Very, they were kind of like country rap. So we did some shows with them, and the Moonshine Bandits and the Lower Class Alcoholics were just naturally was just a great combination. You know what I mean? It's like Total Devastation and Cypress Hill putting them on the bill. Like how can you go wrong?
Perfect.
So
yeah.
we went out on tour. It was our first tour, and this is before still again we don't have cell phones. We're looking at maps. We got maps of California, and we got 2 truckloads of people, a van and a SUV and a truck. I think we had 3 vehicles, right? So we took a couple weeks off of work. We do shows everywhere. We're doing shows in Monterey. We did a show in LA. We did a show in Visalia, bro. We did a show in Visalia, and we had our shit down to a science, and we're doing shows with some other people, like from the areas, and we go on this tour, and we got walkie-talkies because you get into Bay Area traffic or LA traffic, you're going to lose one another, right? Just no way. So we got walkie-talkies like, hey, we're going to take the next exit, all right, let's take the next exit, and we got maps. Like people just can't even imagine, like, if you threw a map in front of a kid nowadays, he'd be like, what the hell is this? This looks like you took a picture from MapQuest and printed it. Like, yeah, this is even before MapQuest. There's no MapQuest. You know what I mean? We're literally like, who's the map guy? Whoever knows how to read the map the best, you are now the map guy of the tour. We're piling into hotel rooms like 10 deep, sleeping on the floor, so we really like, you had to hustle back then. It was not like it is today. But as time went on and things got a little, the internet got a little more accessible. Like I said, we reached out to Hap. We're doing shows with him, and now he's got people that he knows in Fresno. This guy that owned like a CD/T-shirt shop / smoke shop put up a stage in downtown Fresno for opening his smoke shop. We did shows with those guys down there, and everywhere we go, it's fun, and we're having a party, and we're having drinks. But before we do any of that, when we get to these towns, we're going to the record stores, because back then there was a lot of record stores, right? Still a lot of CD stores, a lot of mom and pop local shops that would let you put your shit in there on consignment. So what we would do is we would go in there and we would put our shit in on consignment and put it for we go look at all the rest of the local CDs. All the local CDs are like $5, $7, and $10. Sell ours for $2. And they're like, yeah, but we're going to take 50% of that. We're like, we're probably not even going to come back to get the money. Honestly, we don't even know when we're going to be back in Fresno or, Southern California. Sell these things. And if we don't come back for the money, keep the shit. We just want to get them out there. So we're going to every mom and pop shop every time we stop somewhere. We're asking people, where's the mom and pop record store? We are going to the high schools. We're handing out CDs for free, doing whatever we can just to get the music out there. So now we're on this tour with Oli. We come back. We continue to just do show after show during the summertime. We basically it got to a point where it became work. It became business. We took it that serious. You know what I mean? I would tell everybody at the beginning of the summer, like, if you got anything important for the next 3 months, give me those dates now. Give me those dates now, and those will be the days. If it's super important, I'll make sure that we don't book shows. But I need to know in advance, because if at the point now where I'm making up my own contracts, we're getting deposits for shows. Like, it's starting to become like a professional thing, and we're doing all these shows. And then we decided to go on a tour with the Resonators, who was Hap Hathaway out of Chico. He takes us, he's got this bus that he turns into a tour bus, one of the little small buses, like the handicap buses or whatever. that you see around town. He turns it into a tour bus. So we go on a tour. We're on a tour for like 2 weeks. He's got all these venues with local artists from these venues. We do a show in San Francisco with one of the dudes from Hieroglyphics, whose name is Nobody. We end up doing shows with him later on. We're doing shows in Fresno again with this guy that owns the shop. We do shows in San Jose. We did the show in Visalia, and I remember some of the shows we were like, there was nobody there. So, there was literally like maybe 5 people at some of these shows, and some of them there was 70, 80, 90 people, 100 people. And one of the shows that we went to, we were doing the show in Visalia, and in the middle, Visalia is in the middle of nowhere. It's a little farm town, right? There's this bar, and I remember we show up, and there's this one other dude there, and he's a younger white dude. He looks pretty preppy in our eyes, He looks pretty clean cut, like not too much from the hood, maybe from the burbs, And he's gonna go on first, and I think we go on like third, and then this other group shows up. And the van pulls up, and all these dudes come out, and they're all like cripped out, or like banging hard. They all got blue bandanas, and you know what I'm saying? They're banging super hard. And we're like, oh shit, this is, it's not. We were never really scared. We could always handle being in any situation, but we're like, this show's gonna be gangster as fuck. And then all these other gangsters start showing up, and then all of a sudden the motorcycles start rolling in, and it's the Rough Riders West Coast chapter. The motorcycle gang, the fucking Rough Riders. These guys drive their bikes inside the bar, literally, like, and put it on the dance, park their bikes on the dance floor. So now we're like, and we're just, it ends up being a pretty decent sized show. And this little dude goes on first, and I remember he got up there, and your boy's wearing a polo shirt, and he's looking straight from the burbs, and he's first thing he's like, yeah, so this first song I'm gonna do is about the struggle. It's about the struggle. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's the struggle. And this relates to something that maybe I heard a lot of the other artists say, is that I've heard you ask people like, a bit of advice for people trying to do hip hop coming up, for the younger cats. And I've heard it multiple times, and I'll repeat it. Be yourself. You can't emphasize that and be yourself, because at some point someone is going to check you when you're not, and they're going to know it. And this dude was one of those guys. He wanted to be involved in hip hop. He did this song, and I remember he made some references to like slavery and shit. And I'm like, this guy, he's literally in front of a bunch of Crips and the Rough Riders, and he's already looking scared. He looks like he doesn't belong there, and he looks, and when he does the song, like, we're all like, oh shit, he's gonna get dragged out in the street and stripped of all his shit. And so he does his set, and I just remember I was like, oh, going on after that's gonna be tough, man. Here we are, like 3 white boys, 2 white boys and a Mexican, and we don't necessarily look like we're from the burbs, but we're not from the hood, even though Humboldt is a little hood. I just remember we got together and we're like, look, dude, we just got to get up here and we have to kill it. We just have to kill it like we do every single time. And I remember the Crip group went on before us, and then we went on, and then the Resonators went on. But we went on, and we got up there, and we killed it. We just did what we normally do. And I remember the rest of that night, even the Resonators were very much like us. They were a little bit more maybe on the conscious side, right? They're more like conscious hip hop, but they also practice regularly. They're fucking smooth on their craft, great stage performance, and they're a bunch of white dudes, and they had one black guy with them, but very, very similar. But we both got up and we just crushed it. And I remember we all spent the rest of the night partying with the Crips and the Rough Riders, and we had a ball. Like, these guys were all like, oh, you guys' shit is so tight, like we gotta link up, and we had, it was like an amazing night. I got all these pictures of us, like, it's just 3 white boys and a Mexican, and this whole gang of Crips behind us, and Rough Riders with Harleys and shit behind us, and it was just, yeah, it was just one of those memorable moments that I'll never forget. Hip hop brought me a lot of fun times that I'll never forget. But yeah, that was like, it's just proof that being yourself, people will relate to you when you're yourself. That this dude that went on before us, he got the hell out of there immediately. He knew, we could tell he wasn't being himself. We could tell he wasn't genuine. He was portraying what he thought was going to be cool at the time, or maybe was popular at the time, and it just wasn't really himself. I mean, you could be a dude from the burbs and still rap and be rapping about the burbs and have it be cool, and people would know that it's you and be cool with it. It don't have to be. You don't have to try to be ghetto or hood or whatever you think is cool at the time. If that's not you, don't be that. You know what I mean? And I heard a lot of artists on here say that that's one of the things that they would tell the younger artists nowadays is to be yourself. It's one of the, I mean, you could see through it, you know what I mean? And especially if you are an artist and you read the crowd, you know how to read the crowd, you learn how to read people, which is something you should just do in life anyway. But you can see right through somebody when they're not being themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Damn. That's a crazy one. Where did that happen again? Just down south of here?
Yeah, Visalia. So it's like it's kind of
Visalia.
central. Yeah, central California, close to like Los Banos, and it's just in this bar in the middle of nowhere. We're driving out to it, and I'm like, are we driving to a farm? Like, where are we going? And there's this bar in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And
Rough Riders pulled up, man. West.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I didn't even realize they had a West Coast chapter. You know what I'm saying? The only time I'd seen the Rough Riders was on fucking DMX video. You know what I mean?
Dang, yeah, that's crazy. Oh man.
So, with that, Hap ended up doing sound for Oli, and I introduced Hap and Oli. Hap also happened to be a sound engineer, good sound engineer, which was great to have on the tour with us, right? He had a sound system, so he ended up linking up with Oli and doing sound for a lot of Oli shows, and now he links up with all these other Humboldt County artists, and now he just did the show last week with Total Devastation and OED and them, like, and he's still intertwined into the Humboldt, and he helped, actually, not even being from Humboldt, help push the scene along, not only here in Humboldt, but in his hometown too. He was very much doing the same thing that we were doing. He was hustling, trying to link with other groups who were kind of like-minded, kind of in the same area of professionalism, the same popularity, and switching shows. And this is what we started doing when Facebook Facebook, MySpace, and all that stuff started becoming popular. So now we're reaching out to people. We're doing shows in Reading with a cat named Will, who is basically the same, very much doing the same thing in Reading. And now we're interlinking all these groups together. You know what I'm saying? To help each other hustle. And not only that, but back at home, we're working with groups to try to put them on shows where, it got to a point where, I heard One Ton say that they were like the only cats that sold out the Mateel. And this is very much true. Yes, they did a lot of stuff, and we kind of followed in their footsteps. But we're also one of the only other groups that actually, when the Mateel would put on shows, they would put on big shows, right? Like they put on big names, big reggae names, big hip hop names, big rock names. So it got to a point where we're starting to become the hometown. Because now Pollux, they're not even like, they're always going to be Humboldt no matter where they go. But now they're doing worldwide tours and shit, right? So now we're the hometown group. We're the Humboldt County representatives of hip hop locally, more so, and they're out touring. And I think at this point they may have already got their record deal. So they're all over the place. But so now we're getting calls from the Mateel, and we're getting asked to open. And it got to a point where the Mateel was like, "Look, man, we don't pay local groups. We're just giving you the opportunity to open up for bigger name artists." And me trying to be the businessman I was, we refused. There was opportunities to pay to play, where you would pay $500 and you would get to open up. We refused. We just refused. We were like, no, bro, we have a following. Some of these people, yes, it's E40 and everybody's going to come to see E40, but 20 to 30 of those people at least are going to show up early, no matter how early you put us on, and they're going to be there to see us as well with E40. So we refused to pay to play, where a lot of groups were starting to see that as an opportunity to open up for, bigger names, which is fine. We knew what we had, and you gotta kind of stand your ground when you know what you have. So now Mateel's reaching out to us, and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, here's the deal. we don't do shows for free when it's this big of a show. You know what I mean? Like if it's something that's crazy, I know it's just a crazy opportunity, or charity. We were always like, if someone's doing a charity event, we're down. We're down to pay. We're down to play for free. No problem. We'll even donate some of our sales of our CDs and our merch. You know, we're always down to help local charities. But so they actually started paying us. They're like, you're right. These guys, they actually have a following. Some of the promoters were even like, no. Those guys, they do have a following, and 100 people are going to show up to see them. So now we're one of the only other groups that actually, hip hop groups, that Matil is actually paying to play for these bigger groups. You know what I mean? And that was kind of some of the things that, like we saw Potluck doing, and we kind of strive for those things too, because a lot of other groups would just do whatever it took, like, hey, we'll fucking mop the floor after all the beer is spilled just to do shows. And we got to a point where we felt like we had a big enough following, and that we were professional enough that we weren't just gonna do shows for free. And then I started getting in with Arcada clubs, Joe Mazzotti. I got the Eureka clubs now, and then now we're good with Matil. And at this point, we're moving. We're doing shows whenever we want. We're getting paid good, and at this point, we're actually putting money in our pockets. We actually get to a point where we decided that if we got paid $500, we would each get $100, and then the rest would go back into more CDs or whatever it was, our travel pay, because we started traveling around. And so now we're putting money in our pockets, and it becomes more of a business than it was, fun. And at that time, I started. We had just started. The Thick fam was kind of out and doing their thing, and I spotted this little dude from the Thick fam. This little dude who stood out to me, and it wasn't necessarily because of his performance, but his rhyme pattern and the things that he was saying were just like straight from the heart. There was no, he was being himself. But the one thing, in a lot of these groups, including us when we first started, we were not the best performers. We were up there. We were there to get drunk, party, and do whatever. So we would get up there smashed and skip over our words. But we had 3 or 4 dudes in the group who would always back us up. And so now newcomers would come along sometimes, and they put on their CD if they didn't have a DJ, and if they messed up, they'd be like, turn it up, start over. We're gonna start over. And that was just a faux pas to us. We didn't ever want to do that. So I noticed this dude, and he stood out to me, but I felt like he would probably exceed a lot of the dudes that he was rapping with, and probably us as well. And that dude was Highway. And Highway, he stood out to me. And so when I met Highway, he told me he had some mixtapes, and he had these mixtapes, and I got a couple of the mixtapes, and I took him straight to Case, and I was like, bro, you got to listen to this dude. Like, he's amazing. Like his songs are just like well put together. He's very conceptual with his songs. These songs that there's not just to get up and rhyme about whatever. Like he's sticking to the subject matter. Each song has a subject matter, which is what we were really kind of all about too. Was we wanted to have concepts for songs. We actually, our next project before we ended up splitting up was we wanted to do a full concept album, right? Like these things are starting to become pretty popular, and if you could do it, it comes off good, it's awesome. There's some amazing concept albums. I don't know if you listen to the Insane Clown Posse.
Yep.
So Violent J has an album where his whole rhyme is to a movie. It's to what is it? I don't know, the Yellow Brick, the one where the Yellow Brick Road. His whole album is to that movie, and if you watch the movie while you listen to the album, that shit. I'm not even an Insane Clown Posse like super fan or nothing, but when I heard that, I was like, this is amazing. Like, I mean, it's crazy. So I meet Highway, and I take the CDs to Case, and Case is like, man, this kid is good. And I'm like, the only thing is that like his performance is still kind of subpar. Like, he's still green. Like I think we should bring him in. We should bring him in and kind of help him out. A lot of guys that we would we would work with, we would tell them, come to practice. They're like, practice? I'm a rapper, dog. I'm tight. What do you mean? I don't need to practice. And we would tell them, look, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we practice between this time and this time. We get together, we smoke a little, we drink a little, and then we do our full set that we want to do. We figure out what songs are going to work well. And a lot of the groups were just like, nah, I don't need to practice. I just get up and do my thing. Okay, cool, whatever. That's you. But we're going to practice, and we're going to be tight. And when you're going to go on after us, you're going to be sorry. And so we reached out to Highway and asked him if he wanted to, maybe do some songs together, practice, and so he started coming to our practices, and we kind of started doing his backups. And then when I found out he was recording on a 4-track, he's recording on this little 4-track that he had. And for the younger guys that won't know, because now you can record everything on one program, like, on your iPhone or whatever. A 4-track, it's basically like a cassette player where you got 4 tracks to record. And you're not punching in whenever you want to. You're not erasing something and moving it around here and there. You got to go all the way through. Like, when you stop it, you got to drop right back in perfect. And if you listen to those tapes now, because of the way digital is, they may sound a little rough to you. But back then, they sounded amazing, because we had been in studios. We had been in $1 million studios that sounded terrible. And this guy's over here recording on a 4-track and making it sound amazing. And he's doing full mixtapes on them. This kid's busting out mixtapes. Like, he's got a heart, you know what I mean? And I'm seeing this kid around town with a backpack, always with a stapler and a stack of flyers. He's putting up flyers like a maniac, right? Like, and his concepts were great. So we started working with Highway. We started kind of doing some of his backup. Oh, I'll lose you there. Me and Kyz started kind of doing his backups. And now he's kind of got, now we weren't really his hype man, but kind of, because now you're figuring out where to take your breaths and not miss part of the song, right? Because we didn't really have access to studios where we could make background ghost tracks with just your ad libs or anything like that. But also, this kid knows about, because he's working with this 4-track, where he has to know about his tracks and his ad libs and how to do them properly, because working with a lot of the local guys, because we didn't have a lot of access to real studios. A lot of guys they didn't know how to count to a beat. They didn't know how to punch in. They didn't know what ad libs were. They didn't know what highlight tracks were. They didn't know if they should double up their tracks or not. And a lot of that is a learning process that you learn in the studio, and that every artist should know. If you call yourself an artist, you could be a rapper all day, never record anything, just spit raps, whatever. But if you're going to be an artist, you should learn the craft as much as possible. You can never stop learning. And I tell that now to younger artists. I met a guy locally here in Vacaville after like 5 years. I get here and there's no music scene. And I'm like, I didn't realize what I had back in Humboldt. You know what I mean? Like, it's such an amazing place for every form of art in such a small area. Like, it's just people, in Humboldt, they don't realize. And you go somewhere else. This is a very small town that I live in, and there's no music scene. There's no scene at all. There's not people painting. There's not people making, even like rock music. We have one small venue. So I moved here and I'm reaching out all over the place. I see people on Facebook and I'm like, hey, you make music? They're like, yeah, but there's not really a scene around here. And then I find this one young cat who's got a little studio, and I go over and I meet him, and I say, hey, I'm just trying to find someone to record me occasionally, because I'd kind of faded out of the music, but it's always going to be something that I do no matter what, whether it's professional or hobby. But yeah, so it's an amazing place. So this kid here, he's making these 4-track tapes. He's making these amazing mixtapes. And so, we have him doing shows with us. And he's kind of our main opening act when we're headlining, or if we're opening up for another act. Now we're telling the promoters, hey, we got another act that's kind of part of our conglomerate. We'll have him open up for us, and you have us open up for whoever. So we started doing shows, and eventually it got to the point where it started becoming a little too much for I think for Jimbo, and it was becoming more of a job for Jimbo, and he just wasn't loving it as much And at some point, he decided that he didn't really want to do LCA anymore. We had a lot of shows booked for the summer. We had already had some deposits given to us, and I think something came up where he had like a wedding to go to, and we had a show to do. And I was like, I'm sorry, man. Like we already got paid to do the show. You know, like that's kind of the theme. If you're going to become professional, is that you miss out and you lose a lot of things. Even like, you know, other artists have said, like, you got to be willing, if you really want to make this successful and you want it to be your career, or even you want it to be popular for you, like there's things that you will sacrifice and you will lose. You will lose friends, you will lose girlfriends, you will lose jobs, you know, but if you love it that much, you have to move on. And there was something that he wanted to go to that was important to him. And I, you know, I told him, I was like, you know, we all sat down and we had this conversation about it being a professional thing. And that now we're in contracts, we got deposits, we got all these things going on, and we can't just skip out on stuff. Like, hey, I got a wife and kid, and I'm missing some school plays, and I'm missing some baseball games. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so at that point, we decided to kind of go our separate ways. And this is where I reached out to a Highway, and I said, look, man, I got those booked, and you've been opening up for us, and these ones you weren't opening up for us, but we could get paid to do these shows. It's not a lot of money, but specifically I had a show with D12 and Warren G coming up, and then a couple other shows. And so I said, look, why don't you and I, since we're already kind of doing our thing, like I'm backing you up, I'll get up and back up some of your verses, and you do some of your songs, and then you back up me, and I'll just do the verses from my LCA songs that are my verses. So show, and we realized, like, man, we really kind of got this, just the two of us back and forth. We really kind of got a great, you know, stage presence, you know. So we do a couple more shows as just Highway and Kyz J, and then I'm like, we should just do an album, bro. Let's just do an album. And he was like, yeah, we should, but, you know, we should probably, like, should we, like, name it something? And I'm like, well, we could like be a group, I guess. Yeah, we could put it together. And we had this guy named Blaine, who Casey had worked with, who we just found out randomly made beats, kind of a little nerdy white dude who was just making beats by himself and never showing them to anybody. And then he started showing them to Case, and Case started showing them to us. And we're like, dude, Case, can we link up with this dude and make some music? And he was like, yeah, of course. And about this time, Case is linking up with Eli, who's already, you know, like a guy that we knew because we're doing shows locally. You know, all of us artists kind of know each other, help each other out, you know, push each other's music. So now he's linking up with Eli. They're kind of doing their thing. Me and Highway, we go into the studio, and we decide every Sunday we're just going to spend 10 hours in the studio every Sunday, just putting together some songs, just to see what happens. So we get in the studio, we do. You know, I think we did like 15 songs, and we decided to keep like 12 of them or something. And then we threw an album together, and we decided to call, at the time I was listening to a lot of the Grouch from the Living Legends, right? And the one song that really caught me was the Never Die, Never Die, where he was, you know, talking about how, you know, Tupac, you know, doing his thing, but his shit would never die. And then some other shit. And I was like, bro, we should just call it Never Die, because we both came from other groups, you know what I mean? And we're not going to stop doing this shit. And let's just call it Never Die. So that's what it became, was Never Die. And we put the album together. And then Brian, who was also, you know, Big Daddy, was pushing shows for Thick Fam, was already kind of Highway's manager at the time. And so me and Brian kind of decided that we would together manage Never Die. We started doing some shows as Never Die. We got our stage performance down to a T. We didn't have a DJ, but we figured out how to work the tracks to where we could stop and do this thing back and forth with the crowd. And like it became so tight that, like, Brian started calling us the dynamic duo. He's like, bro, you guys are just like killing it on stage. Like, people just are, anybody going on after you is just pissed, bro. They're not like wanting to go on after you guys. Well, shit, start getting us the main spot. You know what I'm saying? Like, so and at this time, Highway's already working kind of with Potluck. One Ton reached out to us and had me and Highway on a leg of their tour with Lucky I Am from the Living Legends and Mr. Fab from Oakland and Potluck. And then they would put on some of the local artists wherever we would go. So we did a few shows with them in Oregon, and we were just having a good time. You know what I mean? We weren't getting paid tons of money, but we were getting paid enough to where we weren't spending our own money. You know what I mean? It was paying for itself, you know, like, and it got to a point where Highway is really just, you can't keep up with that guy when it comes to writing. Like he's putting albums down, he's putting songs down with me and him. And by the time me and him would get one song done, he had already come up with 3 new songs for his album, you know? So he's banging out album after album, more mixtapes. And I tell him, I'm like, you know, you gotta put together a real full length album, like not just the mixtapes. The mixtapes are great. You're doing songs over already established, you know, artist songs, remaking them. Those are great, but you got to put together a tape. You got to put together a full length CD. So he starts working on that, and really, my thing with Highway is that I knew like he was going to exceed every level that, you know, once I started working with him, the kid was just you could not. If you're in a group with him, you're not keeping up with him. I promise you. The kid just writes all day, every day. He's so devoted to his craft and like constantly upgrading, constantly making it better, making it different, you know, doing different cadences, you know. And so it got to a point where, and also like my home life started really kind of taking over more than anything. So I slowly kind of started fading out. And then I got a job that required me to be there, you know, way more time. So now I barely have any time for shows, and Highway, you know, he just continued to do his thing, and he's kind of he's evolved into this amazing, not just an amazing artist, but he's one of the coolest guys you'll ever meet, you know, like doing shows with him. We just love talking to like the any fans, you know, or people that come to the shows, and like he's very hands-on, you know, and to see him like start to do everything on his own, making his own videos, booking his own shows, getting, you know, these features. Like when I saw that he got that feature with Tech Nine, one of mine and Highway's first probably 5 shows, we did a show. We opened up for Tech Nine, and Slaughterhouse was there. And Slaughterhouse was opening up for Tech Nine. They were on tour with him, and we got to do a show with Tech Nine, Slaughterhouse, and I think Murs was on tour with them too.
Oh, wow.
Murs signed on to Strange for a minute. So that to us was crazy. We were like, what? Slaughterhouse wasn't even really like a thing yet. They were a group, obviously, but I don't even think they had their album out yet. They were just kind of getting it out there to see what you know, how people were going to take it. And so here we are opening up for Tech Nine, Slaughterhouse, and Murs. And the thing is like, I tell this to kids now, you know, no matter how much access you have to the internet, your hustle, there's so many aspects of your hustle that you can never have enough hustles. And things that we did was different from everybody else, like not just rap wise, but at that particular show, they gave us a small spot. I think they gave us like 15 minutes, and we were stoked with that, right? Because we just thought we were opening up for Tech Nine. Then we get there and Murs and Slaughterhouse are there, like, how, you know, like you just can't fathom that at the time. Highway was blown away. He was just so stoked we were opening up for Tech Nine. And us as LCA, we had opened up for Tech Nine a couple times already anyway. And those shows are amazing and packed. And to watch that guy perform, you know, like every time we opened up for him, we would watch just everything he did, because we're like, we got to incorporate those types of things into our show because he's so amazing. So we're at that show, and I tell Highway, I was like, you know what we need to do, because we only got 15 minutes. It's really just enough time for us to get going. Is we should go out to the crowd, because the line would form outside of the Mateel. This is at the Mateel. The line would form outside of the Mateel for maybe an hour to 2 hours before. What we should do is we should go out to the crowd, and we should just do a show right then and there before the show even opens.
Oh man.
And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, let's just bring a fucking boombox. We don't need no microphones, no nothing. We're just gonna go slap the CD on and perform right in the crowd. So he was like, yeah, let's do it, man. Let's just see what happens, right? So we're not allowed to sell our merch inside the venue until a certain time, like only during our set. I think because Tech Nine's had exclusive contracts that he wanted his stuff, which was that's what you do when you get that big. You don't want anybody making the money that you're there to make when you're on tour. So what we do is we go out with it. We went out with a gang of shirts and whatever other little merch that we had, some stickers and some sweaters and shit, and we just drew the crowd's attention. Hey, everybody, look over here. Check this out. We're gonna open up. You're gonna see us on stage earlier. But they only give us a couple of minutes, so we thought we wanted to give you a couple more minutes. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a show right here in the parking lot right now. And I see Tech's guys there. They have guys in advance walking around with shirts and shit too, walking around to the crowd, like out in front before they're at the venue, but they're not in the crowd. They're just waiting for the crowd to come in. They got their shirts ready. They got like 3 guys. I see them look, and they're like, what the fuck are these guys doing? So we go into the crowd and we bust like 3 songs. Before you know, we got a crowd. We literally got the whole crowd circled around us, and we're just, we're busting our rhymes. And then we're like, all right. So we start handing out some CDs, and then boom, we start selling shirts. And I see Tex guys jump off the front of the Mateel and start getting into the crowd. Hey, we got shirts. They're like, oh shit, these guys figured out a way to go around a little contract, right? They didn't say we couldn't sell it in advance in the parking lot. So we were out there busting rhymes, and they like what we had, so they start buying our shit, and those are just little things that we did to go the extra mile. Like if you want to fucking make this something that you love and that you can do, you don't just nowadays you can put it on the internet. Maybe it'll go crazy, but maybe it won't. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna sit around and wait? Nah, that's not what we're gonna do. Any opportunity we could to perform in advance or to get our shit out there, whether it was with LCA or whether it was with Never Die, and those are things that like I felt like I kind of pushed onto Highway that he took even further. I heard him say that we were LCA was kind of his mentor, and that's I think what he means when he says that, because I basically wanted to see him grow more than anything. And then after I slowed down and kind of moved out of the county and wasn't really doing music anymore, and I knew that he was always going to continue doing music. That's just Highway. It's in his blood, and he couldn't stop if he wanted to. And I love that about him. And like when I see him taking on all these things, is taking on making his videos, and when he got that Tech Nine, it's like watching your little brother do something huge for the first time, and it's nothing but love to see him do that stuff. And then to watch Casey go off and do this thing with Eli, and then anytime I see, local stuff, I miss, I was really stoked to see that you were doing this, because it brought back a lot of the memories that and a lot of things that people now just don't even realize happened before they came along. You know what I mean? And to see now younger guys getting out there and having these opportunities, like, different venues that were gone for a while. Red Fox closed down for a while. OEB had it and was doing some stuff there too. And then it became the Comedy Club, and it kind of seemed like the scene faded out a little bit. But it seems to be there's a candle lit, and it seems to be going up pretty good. And there's a lot of people that maybe I didn't mention in some of these stories, but we worked with, like I see you working with Zach, right? Like, so Zach brought us on, and I got CDs, the Rats. Those are guys I still, every once in a while, not too long ago, I went down to Reading where Mr. Ocean lives, and me and him recorded a song, and I was on one of the Rats albums. I got all these CDs from back in the day. These guys all put in work and put these CDs together, like, yeah. And then we worked with guys from Willits. These guys from Willits were also another Outlaws of Illwits, were another crew that came to Eureka and did shows, and they helped us do shows out of the county into their county. And then Area Sound, Zach, those guys brought me and Highway on. I got their CD from back in the day, Area Sound. Like,
oh wow.
Yeah.
That's legacy right there, man.
And then you got guys now doing stuff, and it's good to see that these things continued. Like, you got Flo J, right? Flo J came in when when Highway and I were just kind of at our peak, and he kind of started opening up shows for us. So Highway, we got Flo J's CD here too.
Oh man.
So Highway and I started bringing him to the studio because Highway, we were recording with this dude where we did our album Never Die in his house. He ended up moving off to San Diego, and then Highway ends up starting to go to Universal, and now we're recording like professional. And if you know, I know maybe no one else has talked about him, but I know Highway has Pete, who records Highway's music and mix and masters. We used to call him Pete Diddy because he's like P Diddy of Humboldt, bro. He's a musical mastermind. Like he would make our shit sound so good. And so now we're taking Flo J to the studio with us. We take him on tour with us when we go on tour with Potluck. Now I see he's, you know, continuing to, you know, it's always about passing the torch. You know what I'm saying? So to see all these people still doing kind of what I mean, I guess we didn't really start it, but I feel like in Eureka, there was always people before us like rapping, you know, we knew people were around town rapping. OEB was one of those hustlers that we knew was rapping way before I was even brave enough to like spit a freestyle in front of anybody. You know what I mean? He was putting little tapes together and little battles or whatever. And we always knew about him. And there was a couple other guys that he used to fuck with too that were rapping. Everybody was kind of rapping, but we decided to kind of push it a little further and actually go out and find venues. And then those people started kind of following in our footsteps. You know, they were like, you know, I consider them the OGs, even though we're kind of all the same age, right? I'm almost 48. So these guys are all the same age as me. They were probably rapping before me. A lot of those guys are even better rappers than me. You know, I was never about being the best rapper. I never considered myself one of the best rappers. You know what I mean? But when we started kind of pushing further, people were like, oh, who are these guys coming out of nowhere? Like, shit, we've been doing this, you know, longer than them. Well, yeah, but here's what we're doing. We're going to open up the doors now to having venues and having opportunities. And there's a few key components to Humboldt hip hop. And I would say that Potluck is definitely one of the top three components. And I would say Swizz continues to be not just for hip hop, but he continues to push the culture of art and hip hop and blends them together. And I would say he was probably one of the biggest factors. He was involved in so many key things going on. Like I got so much love for that guy. Like and Fat Bull and then all the groups he was involved in, and then he had the Hip Hop Lounge, which Highway and I got to be a part of. We got to get up on stage and have them back us up. Like that was one of the best performances that I ever had. And not that everybody else thought it was the best, but I felt it was the best. Like I loved having a band behind us. There's no better feeling than having a band behind you and being able to go off the cuff. And I think we rapped one of our songs to Nirvana's Teen Spirit. They played Teen Spirit and we fucking rapped over it. Like it's amazing. But he's definitely a key factor in all forms of art when it comes to Humboldt. I mean, even not being from here, the fact that he has so much love for it. He's an amazing dude. He's a great guy to just even sit down and have a regular conversation with. He's very humble, very, very talented. I mean, the guy plays drums. He plays keys like you're not going to find a better keyboard player. But you're also just not going to find a better dude, really. I mean, he's a great guy. He recently did a charity for a local School of Rock here in Vacaville, and they played, and I made sure to at least go there and shake his hand and say what's up to him, because for a long time I didn't even know Swizz, until I started kind of rapping with. I knew who he was. Obviously, he's on the scene. You know who he is. But then when I actually got to get in we just sat around in the living room one day with him and a bunch of different Mike Lee, rest in peace, Mike Lee, playing guitar, and a couple other dudes, musicians, and those guys, they learned our songs in like a day. Like, they learned to play these songs in like a day. And like, that shit to me was just like so amazing. And yeah, he's been a very key factor. And I would say that, I think a lot of people owe him a lot of gratitude. I can't say enough about the guy. And then also Oli. Oli was, I don't think people realize, and you can't talk about the history of humble hip hop without mentioning these three people. Oli was big factor in bringing very big artists that were really popular at the time. I mean, it even got to the point where me and Oli were so close. I was kind of his right hand man. There was a point where he got in a car accident. He couldn't run the shows, and I ran the shows for him. He was like, "Bro, I'm laid up in the hospital, and I got this big show going on. I need you to run it for me." And I ran it for him. Like, he would trust in me because I kind of had the business sense already from booking all the LCA shows and how to run these things and be professional. So he's a very good friend of mine, but also like a key factor in, and I hope at some point you can get us all, I know you got that thing coming up in July. Unfortunately, I can't make it, but I hope we can all get together one of these times and do some sort of, just a meet and greet type of thing where we all hang out and tell all the old stories, because I couldn't tell them all. I mean, we were doing so much. It was just, we were pushing so hard. And it was kind of crazy how we all kind of slid off the radar slowly, right when everything became so much easier. Like to be able to have, the internet and all this stuff. We never had utilized it like that. We didn't have it like that. Kids nowadays, they got it a lot easier. But again, they also got it a lot harder. I think that some of the kids don't realize, like, it's saturated. It's very saturated. The hip hop scene is very saturated, but there's also there's so many different subgenres and so many different avenues that there's a spot for everybody. You just gotta figure out your spot. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's a lot more lanes now than it used to be, and hip hop has just changed. But man, I love hearing these stories from, lack of a better term to call you an OG, you know what I'm saying? I love hearing these stories from the OGs that really were in the trenches and doing the work that, like you said, nowadays it's a whole lot easier. You can practically just pay to reach your audience. You just pay Facebook or Instagram, whatever, and they'll push it out there. You guys were on the streets, burning the CDs, doing the parties where you guys were making the CDs and then getting them out there. That's a whole process, and how many hours and hours of work that it took, to do that marketing before it, switched up and how it's different now. Like, that can't be understated. Like, folks definitely have to make sure they recognize that and acknowledge it.
And I think a lot of it still applies. A lot of it still applies today. We don't have a lot of record stores out there, but there are some in some small towns. Like if you can get your shit in some record stores. I know a lot of guys aren't burning CDs or even making CDs anymore, pressing them up. But there's other avenues. We started doing download cards. You could hand out download cards where you have a single that's hot and you want people to hear it. You go and hand out these cards that have a little URL on them that people can go download and get it for free. There's all these websites, but you got to be, you got to hustle harder than anybody else. Even now with all the access and all the avenues there are, if you think you're just going to put it out there and you think you're tight, and that's going to get you somewhere, it might get you a little ways. It might, but you're not going to stay relevant forever. And the other thing I encourage people to do is figure out what your measure of success is going to be, and don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I've always been a man of many trades. I've always been a hustler my whole life. I had to hustle to get everything that I've ever had in my life, whether it was through music or anywhere else. And if you think that you're going to put all your eggs in one basket and you're going to be popular, you're going to be famous, that shit burns out real fast. You know what I'm saying? Like, be smart about what you do, and don't, for a long time when LCA stopped doing music, and then when I stopped doing music with Highway, I was jaded about the fact that I think it could have went further. For the longest time, I was, oh man, we could have done way more if we just would have kept it together, and we just would have, did this or did that. And then I got to a point where as I got a little bit older, I realized, like, I got to make great memories with some of the people that I love the most in my life, my good friends, Jimbo, Casey, Highway, and a long list of other people. and it was free. Like, and you can't take that stuff away. Like, a lot of people might not know about it, but I know about it, and at least I know now that I had a great time. Like, we did a lot of stuff that a lot of other groups that were around at the same time as us and were even probably even better than us rap wise didn't do what we did. Like, they didn't take advantage of the opportunity. They just didn't do it. And we, and so now, like when I saw that you had Kyz on here, like he didn't tell me either. You know what I'm saying? I just seen it pop up and I'm like, what is this shit? Because Kyz is always the recluse. He's always been like the guy in the background. You know what I'm saying? I was always the loud one at the show. I was always the face. Like Kyz is always the quiet guy in the background, and people would come up to him and be like, just talk to him like he was just another dude or whatever. And then we would get up and we'd be up on the stage, and then afterwards they'd be like, "Bro, you just this quiet dude in the background. I didn't even realize you could do that shit. Like that shit was tight." Like he was always just the dude in the background, the quiet dude in the background, never very humble, very quiet, but he could, he'd get up and he would do his thing. And me, I was always, talking, and always very social, and out there. And so being able to do all this stuff with the group of dudes and the dudes that come up in this game, the OEBs, the B Swizzes, the Oli Pearsons, and all these other guys, the Area Sound guys, the Hap Hathaway guys. Like, I love to see when they're still doing stuff, even if it's just they're not doing it because it's going to be the career that they're planning on. I love seeing Zach doing his thing with the kids. It's funny because later on down the line, my kids started going to a camp, the Eureka camp, during the summertime when there was no school, and Zach was one of his camp counselors. And I told her, I was like, my son's like, "Yeah, he spits raps once in a while, Dad." I'm like, "Yeah, no, I know. Like that dude can spit. Like we did some shows with that guy, So like, it's a small place, but it's a good place. In for the Humboldt County artists that are out there, realize that you live in a place that is thriving, even though this scene might seem like it's small. When you go somewhere else, you realize you really got a good spot for opportunities. Like, yeah, you may not be opening up for huge artists, but to be able to do these small shows with other artists, and I see now too that other artists are actually like helping each other out. Like, it used to be a lot less of that. It was like, if you were Arcata, you stayed in Arcata and you didn't fuck with dudes from other towns. If you were Eureka, it was the same way. And it slowly changed a little bit here and there because we all realized that we had to lift each other up if we were all going to do something. You know what I'm saying? But I see it now, more artists doing shows with each other. And, like to have, and to see Highway kind of doing what I wanted to do for him, helping other artists, that shit is amazing to me. Like Highway, some of the local artists they may or they may not realize, like, the guy's done songs with a lot of big names, and Tech Nine is just one of them. I mean, he did songs with Forte, who did songs with Tupac. You know what I mean? He did songs with Busy Bone, and he did a lot of stuff before anybody nowadays was doing shit. And he's still there doing shows, small shows. He's still doing shows with artists who are new to the game, and that's a big deal. They should really, he's becoming the OG. He's definitely becoming the OG. They should, appreciate and respect that. And I think that it seems to be that the scene is kind of is getting a little bit bigger. And me myself, I start writing again. I did some case back to kind of making beats, and so we got a little bit of music in the works. I don't think we're gonna do an album anytime soon or anything, but I'm definitely still working on some new music. I got some beats out there on I make some beats when I'm bored, and I need my music outlet, and so I got beats on SoundCloud. Jose Resend is one. If you check them out, they're out there for anybody to use. I don't charge for beats. The beats are there, and they are what they are. I can't really break them down, so I lost my computer and all the tracks separated. But I would love to hear someone bust out some raps on those. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a fun ride for sure, and I like seeing a lot of the new artists coming up.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I like seeing, that torch being passed and artists keeping the scene alive because there's just like you said, there's a lot of art around here, and so I think it's a blessing as well. That there's this much hip hop and this many artists on this scene. You know what I mean? It's a real blessing, and I think that what I really like too is that one of the things you're talking about is that how some of these the OGs are still out there doing it. You know what I mean? Like Case, I mean, he's right now just, did the videography for Highway's latest video, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not teasing anything that, people see it out there. They'll see it on social media, but I think I just saw a teaser of another, some more work that Highway and Case are doing. You know what I'm saying? So those guys are staying busy, and they really, they keep the quality so high. That's one of the things about Highway that I love is that, he's about consistently growing the scene, but just keeping that bar really high. And it shows in everything that he's doing, whether it's his YouTube presence, whether it's his presence on stage, you know what I'm saying? Like he has it dialed, you know what I'm saying? And I appreciate that just as somebody who's talking to artists in the community. So that way these artists have that inspiration to look up to, somebody that's dialing it in, like doing their best, showing people how it's done, helping other people, you know what I'm saying? So I love that. I love to see the scene growing right now. And I love to see the OGs like Swiss still fostering so much in the community. I see, I'm just seeing what I see on social media, but I saw a pic, like I think it was last week, Hap Hathaway, OEB, and Oli, they got doing some things out there. So it's so beautiful to see that. That's one of the coolest things about hip hop is really, you really don't age out of it. It's
No.
not, yeah. So I'm just really thankful to have had the chance to even get these stories. I just want to say one thing about you, Kyz J. Like you're a storyteller, man. Like just from this whole episode right now, you're a dope storyteller, man. And I'm really thankful that you were able to that I was able to get your time for this, man, because this was one of the, in my opinions, I'm looking back at this episode and you really laid it out timeline wise really well. I think that the youth, just the young artists, the newer artists in this community, I think they're going to really enjoy this one.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on here, man, because I like listening to Case. I like listening. It's funny because at all of them, you got your OEB, you got Swizz, you got Highway, you got all these guys that and it's funny because then they're talking about things, and I was like, I remember that. I remember that stuff too, and I remember these these little key moments that, like I said, we're all so intertwined, even when we weren't. Even if we weren't in the same show or whatever, we were there supporting. Like in. And a few people, that I didn't mention was another big advocate, huge guy was Garth Vader. I've known Garth Vader for a really long time, even like, just from around before even right when the Freestyle King started, was always a great guy, but yeah, all these stories and it is good. It's good for the youngsters to hear because it is different, but it's not. It's the one thing I think you'll get out of a lot of the people that you've had on is the love for the culture and hip hop and the hustle. Really, like you can't hustle enough if it's important to you, and if it's important to you, even if you're not planning on making it your career, take care of it. You know what I'm saying? Which is, I think, what you're helping doing by getting these things out here. You're helping take care of not just the culture of humble hip hop, but hip hop itself. I mean, it gave me a lot of things that I may not have had if I didn't get into hip hop. It gave me a confidence when I talk or when I walk into a room, especially like that I take everywhere. It gave me things that I take everywhere in the rest of my life, in different parts of life. And these kids that are doing it now, they may not realize it now, but later on down the line, when they get a little older, if they get into a career or just the way they carry themselves, they'll be a part of what they did in hip hop that is permanently part of them. It will always be a part of you. Being on stage, that takes a lot. It takes a lot of guts, really. I mean, to put your stuff out there, it's not an easy thing to do. And you'll see a lot of kids. There's probably a lot of kids that are at home making music that never show anybody. They may never show anybody because they just don't have they don't have enough confidence, or maybe they don't think it's good enough or whatever. But I encourage those kids like to step out of your comfort zone. That's the thing that will definitely take you leaps and bounds, is just to step out of your comfort zone. Always try to make your craft better. And I love, like you said, I love seeing that about Highway, because that was what we always did in LCA. Was we always wanted to make every time we did something, we wanted it to be better than the last. If we went and came, we're going to make a new recording, let's make sure we can get to like a better studio to make it sound better. Let's find a guy who can mix and master better than the last guy, because now we got a little bit more money to pay. Let's make this show way better than the last show. When we come out with new songs, let's figure out how to incorporate that into the show, so that way it looks cool and people want to hear the song when it comes out. They already know it. They're singing to it when it comes on an album. Like, and I tried to, when I Highway aside and was like, you should come with us. That was what I wanted to kind of instill in him, was like, hey, and he just took it to a whole nother level. And I noticed that every time he does something, he's making videos now. His videos are getting better and better and better. He's the one that we were recording in a little closet, and he found Pete, and he was like, we should come record. We should come and do this, but we got to pay to do it, but it's worth it. You know what I mean? Like, if it's worth it, pay it. So now we're paying to go to the studio, but it's leaps and bounds better than the closet that we were recording in, which at the time was great. Those things are great. You got to start somewhere, but progress. Do what you can to progress. And if you're not progressing, you're going to get stagnant real fast. You know what I'm saying? But you will. You do this thing, and you do this hip hop music will be with you for the rest of your life. I've always been a guy who listens to everything. I don't just listen to one genre. I listen to everything you could think of. Like, I don't listen to a whole lot of country, but I listen to it. I listen to Mexican music. I listen to hard rock. I listen to heavy metal, classic rock, R&B, like shit you just wouldn't, like people they see me and you listen to this? Well, yeah, you don't? Like, I'm not weird because I listen to it. You're weird because you don't. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I think it's great to see, and I definitely I miss Humboldt for sure. Like, there are things that I go home every once in a while and I'm like, oh, it's looking kind of rough here. But when I see some of the stuff that you post and some of the shows, and I saw that they're getting cracking again, I'm like, that's the part of Humboldt I miss, is the art. Because I go to San Francisco all the time, and even there's a lot of crazy shit, a lot of art studios. It's not the same. It's just not the same. Like, to these younger cats, man, realize where you are, realize what you have, the opportunities, whether you're painting, whether you're doing poetry, whether you're doing hip hop or rock and roll, whatever it is, come from a place that nurtures that. And there's not a lot of that out there.
Yeah. I think it's really a blessing. And I feel like Humboldt County is this interesting place with it too, where one of the things that I think people should think about when they listen to this episode is that you and the folks around you, Kyz, and everybody that helped break into those venues that you were talking about, like, that's crucial, because we're in this place where Humboldt's rural, and so it's like it's harder for hip hop to take hold in certain places, right? And so, like, you guys did actually work to get the venues, to open up to hip hop, and that's paving the lane, literally. So I got big respect for that.
Yeah, and that part wasn't easy, because back then a lot of people were like, hip hop doesn't belong in Humboldt. I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't belong in Humboldt? It's worldwide. Like, we're behind the redwood curtain, and maybe it feels like we're on an island, but we got a radio station now, and now we got, it's always been here. You just didn't know. And once we got it in the door and we kept it professional, I would say I don't really recall a time at any of the shows, the local shows, where something crazy happened, where there's always going to be one occasion where there's some drunk asshole who does something stupid. Cops got to come take him away. But really, overall, there was nothing really too crazy that went on. And that was a big part of why these venues let us do these shows, is because we kept it professional. We weren't just there to party and wreck shit. You know what I mean? Like, and I encourage people that go to these shows, or that are having these shows, that are performing these shows, to to encourage your friends and the people that you're doing music with to do the same, so that way other people can come along and do it too. Because that's the only way we're going to keep this thing going. And you start giving it a bad name, and there has been some clubs where some, in Eureka that didn't last long because bad shit happened, and then the cops were just wanting to shut it down. You know what I mean? And then that's one less place where we're able to perform, whether you doing hip hop or rock. You know what I mean? Like, so act like a goddamn grown folk when you're out there, having a good time. Have a good time for sure. But also, you know what I mean? Like, be respectful that you're not the only one who's doing that shit here. So, leave the door open for other people. You know what I mean? And treat it. That's why I said treat hip hop right.
That's right. That's right. Respect the craft, because there's people that have put a lot of work and time into this, It's not a joke. It's not a joke for a lot of people, Hey, Jose, I really appreciate you, man. This was a great time. I'm just so thankful to be able to get this onto the Hip Hop Humboldt podcast. I know that a lot of the heads are going to love this one. Let me tell you what, and it's all because of you. This whole podcast exists because of the artists and because of what you guys have done. And I could have came in and just focused on like the younger crowd and the new generation and everything like that. But I specifically want to do the exact opposite with this and let people know that this podcast is here to give respect to the people that created this culture, because there's a lot of people that did a lot of work again. And so thank you. I really appreciate you. If you've already, I do my usual question, but I feel like you've dropped a lot of bars for the young kids coming up, like, some good things to tell them. So I'm not going to take it there. But again, I do want to say one thing that I always tell the heads that are on here: you're always welcome on this podcast. I know that you've got more stories, and whether it's if I'm able to get more of LCA on, or a larger conversation too. I'm trying to get something like that brewing, where, like you're talking about, where it's like Swizz and Garth, Eli, Highway, as many heads as we could get into a really dope conversation like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to get that
Absolutely.
going too. But it's all because of how beautiful of a culture you guys have created, and it deserves more exposure than I think like what may have happened in the past. And so with that being said, I just want to continue to encourage anybody listening to this, anybody interested in hip hop and the culture and the community in Humboldt County, please come out to the shows. Like, anything that people see that I may be doing, taking videos, y'all can do that too. We need more and more people doing that. And we're trying to reach a critical mass with this, where there's going to be a certain point where it can't be ignored. And whether it's the whole Northern California and Humboldt, the Humboldt scene branching out, like you were talking about, like, we need more Hap Hathaways doing that, like helping Humboldt, artists get put on in other areas, So shout out to Hap Hathaway for that, and anybody else, Oli, and anybody else that was fostering and helping the culture and the community up here, because you guys have created a beautiful thing, man. I got a lot of respect for it.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you doing this. I wish we had something, back in the day. Obviously, like I said, we didn't have internet and things like that, but we were always looking for new avenues. And when you came out with this at first, I saw a couple people posting, and I was like, oh, what's this? There's really not. Is there really enough? Is there really enough musicians out there right now, hip hop musicians, to really be able to keep this thing going? But I also, not being there, I didn't realize. Well, so this is I really appreciate that you're doing this, because I see that you finding new artists, you're finding different people. I didn't even know. I'm definitely stoked to see that the scene is thriving, whether it's doing a lot of shows or not, but that there's kids out there that are getting involved in hip hop and doing live shows, and then you kind of help bring that to me too. So now, I got you on my radar, you know what I'm saying? So I appreciate what you're doing. And I think it's a good thing. I really like, even the format of just you letting people tell their story, letting people talk about the things that they do. Cause I think a lot of times you go into these and they ask you a lot of generic questions, we did a couple back in the day when podcasts were first, coming out, and it was very, very general. And it was just kind of like, oh yeah, I love hip hop. it's cool. You know, like so this is being able to tell these stories and not just tell the stories, but to be able to hear them. I've been, you know, I drive around a lot for work. I'm drive 3-4 hours a day all over the Bay Area, and I just put the podcast on and just listen to them, and then you know I'm laughing out loud because I remember some of the stories that Swizz is telling, or OAB is telling, or Case is telling. You know what I'm saying? So it's a good thing, definitely. I appreciate what you're doing, man.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kyz J.